Okay, hello everybody. Welcome again to another webinar. This will be for payments as well. Last week we just saw customers. Now we're going to check vendors. It's an interesting webinar today. And here, well, we're going to check how we can pay our vendors. We have some tools that are going to help us to do that, to control our cash flow, set up of budgets, and not only payments, but as well, sometimes my vendors actually, for some of you, might require checks. So that would be a plus then. Okay, so yeah, I'm in the actual Business Central application. I'm opening in a browser. And well, you can open it either in a tablet, in a phone. That would be sometimes quite handy, right? And operate anywhere, not only your offices. And currently I'm working in my demo company, Kronos USA, because I have plenty of different vendors and ongoing purchases that I have. Then why do I have got the purchases that I have already created? Currently, I'm, by the way, the business manager or in my division. Just for you to know, in my company, I have different divisions and areas, right? So I report, and I need to verify, well, for these, I have for my stores, group of stores or warehouses or for my manufacturing department, well, in this role center is designed that I can see the purchase order related to the business unit where I'm actually just working. And I can see as well other operations like the sales and well, look at my payments that were not just completed and so forth, right? So for me as a business manager, then I have to take a look, first of all, at the overdue purchase amount. This is important for me because this might be affect then my cash flow, of course. Why do I have this a quite high amount, right? Well, it depends for every company, but well, are you on an investment period? Are you covering your supply chain? Whatever the case, the process for today is, okay, what happened then when I have just gone through a large purchasing process or investment process? As an example, right, for the scenario, we are going to see the payments, but I generated by invoices that look, if you take a look at them, they are actually, these lines are in red, okay? So these are invoices. Actually, you can see the document type and you can see then the external document number. It's good for me that the purchasers actually, when they create an invoice, they create a reference with the external document number, because what they help me, I instruct them, is an internal policy in my company that I need that external document that's coming from the vendor. When they have finished the negotiation, they pause the purchase, and then they create this for me, for the AP clerk, so I can see when when a vendor approaches, comes to my office, he requires a payment or send me an email. It's most probable is, well, actually they are going to send me their own invoice number, not mine. So I have a document number that we call because we have, of course, in our system, every document has a number, right? So every invoice has a Business Central number, but we send it then to an email, and as well, we ask for the external document number. Then we can see the vendor name. It's good as well that everything was just actually and excuse me, I have to explain that we have the original amount of the negotiation for each purchase as an example, and the remaining amount, meaning that I can see how much has been paid, right? What will be the remaining amount to pay. So you can see a basic a KPI here. Your accountants already value related, an accountant clerk, accounts payable clerk. We designed this type of KPIs for you. All right, this would be important to mention. And if you want to see, for instance, your trial balance for the current period as well, it would be good to show it, okay, what's going on with my revenue, with my margin, and so forth, right? And some basic charts as well, if they are useful for you, because, well, all of this work, actually, look at this, income and expenses, each accounts receivable, each accounts payable, all of this work begins from information, right? And look at this, you have as an AP clerk or as an accountant or as a business manager that you're in charge of negotiating as well with vendors or purchase or even. Well, the idea is that we have the information of the invoices and the amount that was that is not overdue, 23,000, right? I actually input a lot of documents to pay. And from 2 weeks ago, well, it's really good that by week as well, I have an actual chart. So we are going to slice and dice all of this information, right? And from the actual chart, excuse me, I would maybe just navigate, yeah, to the actual documents that were overdue 2 weeks ago. So let's just take a look at them and voila, we have now another filter of the same documents, but now in our application. So the idea is that you just access Business Central and immediately just begin to work. So that is actually very cool for me because I don't have to do too much work or well, then or try to export to Excel and so forth. So immediately open and start figuring out how you're actually performing, right? Then it's of course, well, plausible to mention, why not to, before going to the payments, I'm going to open now my accountant role center. Now the accountant is going to be able to see some other information, specific reports. We are going to divide by security if you want it. In the through the implementation, we ask you what any responsible person in my company is going to actually perform specific transactions. Now my accountant is going to be able to see the payments that actually I'm going to need to do today, right? So it's the other part. So for in one hand, I have the operations, in the other, I have the financial decisions. I need to check my payments for the day. This is coming from the operations, right? It might not be exactly as the overdue purchase documents only that I show by 1 week, 2 weeks, but the payments could come from other operations as well, expenses, projects, manufacturing, and any type of debt that you have, right? Basically. So, well, it depends on your business, basically. So these are the purchase documents. So I can see, okay, anyway, since I already told you, for this exercise, I created purchases, right? So if my payments then are actually, and I know that I'm informing you, well, I'm informing you that all my payments will be related to invoices for vendors for this session, right? Now, this could be a fixed assets, as well. We can purchase, by the way, fixed assets is important to mention. And well, what else would be important? As an accountant, I need to understand what would be my checks, my checking account, savings account, petty cash, and so forth, right? So what will be the actual capacity or liquidity, how much money I have in my savings, in my checking accounts. This is due the actual investment that I did, right? So it's actually some of the payments that I did. Nevertheless, another cool tool that I could use is a cash flow forecast coming from Cortana before doing payments. Okay, I know that I have done a lot of purchases, right? Look at my payables, okay? Let me just actually, why not increase my chart, right? When I make a zoom, I can see now some figures. Payables is still quite high, okay? And these are my, but this is done by Cortana, not by me. For April is a forecast, okay? It's telling me that, hey, take a look at your payables, is not really healthy, look at it, okay? And then for May and June, well, since it's quite in the future, it's not yet really completed. And I can see this type of forecast coming from Cortana artificial intelligence. Is really cool sometimes. Okay, so nevertheless, the idea is that I would, of course, start with the actual information and not to mention, well, the never always important aging report. Okay, so just showing you some tools. So let me see, payables, aging. What was the name of the report? Okay, what happened when I input, for instance, a keyword, payables? Okay, Immediately, a Business Central understand that I would need something. I'm looking for something. Either do you want to open a payment journal or a purchase or a credit memo, anything related to a pay to a payment, maybe, right? This is really cool as well. I don't have to learn all the menus inside Business Central because, well, it's actually huge. But look at this, I could actually open then the reports. Okay, so I have receivables payable and age accounts payable report, traditional age accounts payable, where you could see, well, where age as of, okay, where do you want to base your transactions on for the report, right? So you can include the today's date. Actually, we just do that, and so to speak, I would then include the 24. Okay, and then important how you want to see your report, the due date, only do operations, transaction dates when you actually were documenting, document date. These two are quite a similar, transaction date and document date, since we are inputting documents on one specific date, right? But no matter what, the due date might be, of course, different according to your purchasers' negotiations with vendors, right? Do you want to show all overdue transactions by vendor, separate them? This is really cool, actually. What else? Print the detail as well. I like this one because it could show me the actual document numbers, or use external document number like I was mentioning. Sometimes we have, yes, internal invoices in our Business Central system, but as a policy, normally we train your purchasers to give and to ask to your vendors what is the external document number. Do you want to even print it to another format that is not only presented here, so you can download it and share it, or send it to, okay? We could even send it to somebody. So if you have, just a review, print it. And for now, I'm just going to click on preview. It's just an actual standard report, right? It doesn't have too much magic. But the cool thing is that it has different like layouts that you can select. So for the date that I selected in the past, sorry to mention that I am actually, because of my license, very important, sorry, I'm working in April, right? So I have a lot of overdue documents and so forth. But just wanted to include a very small report because it could take a while. So I just played with the dates definition for the report and just showing you, well, just a very standard report. It's just that we have some vendors, well, whiteboard importer, you can check the phone number, the invoice, this is coming from April, the balance, okay? And here you can see that, well, this specific balance for this invoice would be 12,000, okay? And this will be only for one single vendor. And in another pages, I as well can separate it by vendor. But, well, by document, you're gonna have a complete list, what is actually due only, and otherwise, as well, we can separate it by number of days in the past, 3 columns, okay? So you can select maybe by week, by month, or however you want it. So that's what is cool about this report, that you can actually change to include detail or no, currencies, how you want to split your columns in the past, so you can, well, verify with the microscope what's going on with every vendor. So those are just basic, it's just basic information, right? Check your payments that you have to do, your cash account balance, in this case negative. Sorry, I actually was purchasing other documents. So you get the idea. Analyze your information. What else? Check your standard aging report. And let's just start now working. Okay, for me then it's important now to see the vendors. While I'm continuing to learn Business Central, any vendor is an entity for the dev. That's why it's just basically the actual review of the vendor list. For Fabricam, we need to see, okay, I still owe to this vendor. Look at this, you have the statistical information, really cool, immediately there. Then outstanding orders, still I'm purchasing, okay? Look at this, somebody's making a really large purchase, but why do I have this specific debt? Why? Okay, let's just take a look. In the statistic, you as well can check, oh, okay, really good. With this vendor specifically, I only have 3 invoices, but one is overdue because it's red, right? And immediately we can just go and check the amounts that I still owe and the remaining amount because I haven't actually paid any of these documents. So let's just then start working, okay? The same happens for all other vendors. Okay, I want to check then the total, the overdue amounts, only 2,000. It's important for me to check the payments that I have done. When was the last time I actually paid to this vendor as well, just for negotiations, right? Because sometimes some of my vendors really require payment urgently after specific dates, right? And then as well, you could just get the information. We have an email and so forth. So for me, then I could as well check any document that I still, the bank accounts, the contact information for your vendor. This is, well, more related for AP clerks sometimes. Send emails how your communications went for this vendor at any given moment. And then let me see, reports. Open vendor entries. Open means that I haven't actually just paid. This is another report. So you can see in local and foreign currency, if that's the case, use external document number. And as well, you can send it to your vendor in advance. And the idea is that you can as well prepare any given report that you have in order to have communications with your vendor, right? And I'm just going to now send an email. Basically, it's just a layout that is currently prepared by Business Central and prepare my report, right? I don't have to do anything. And this could be attached to be immediately sent without me to actually attach to any given email that I have to prepare. So it's just sent immediately so they can see information. Okay, it's the same report that where I have included just the overdue invoices, by the way, just to mention. And for me, it's important to actually speak with vendor. Okay, look, the local currency is actually US dollars. We don't have exchange rate. Okay, but the invoice actually is here. The invoice number, blah, blah, blah. Speak with the vendor is 2,000. Okay, do you need any specific payment? Or, well, he might be asking normally for the sub payment, of course, but it's about the negotiations that you have with any given vendor. And you can immediately, while you have a conversation, call him, look at the balance, the total, all the documents that you still have, and report immediately. Open the vendor entries where you can see, well, which invoices were just paid, and to send immediately a report because he might be saying something else, and so forth, right? Well, that will be basically the idea. Here from the actual vendor card, any given account clerk, because if I'm speaking with him, I would be requested to immediately pay. So we have the current function pay vendor and create payments. I'm gonna come back into these functions right now, but I'm going to do the traditional way first, where I would just open what we call a payment journal. Okay, after all my reviews, remember you check by vendor, review for all the company, and so forth. I'm just, well, the normal processes you always do. I'm just showing what do we do and how, which tools we have in Business Central, right? Now, a payment journal. Payment journal is from where we actually prepare payments. So we have for any given date, a document type, which we call just the payment. We have other type of information we can register, and then a document number. This was automated by Business Central. I like the G for payments, okay, but it's up to you, and this is really cool. And as well, I use the account type for a vendor, okay, because we as well can use other type of operations, right? But for now, as long as I select a vendor, that will be fine. If I want to pay, only one, I'm going to show you just the first type of a simple process to check column by column, right? In the payment journal is basically inserting a vendor, the basic exercise or the traditional process, where you are going to now select an offsetting account or balance account, okay? We do not only have GL accounts regularly, it's just inserting the AP, but we don't want to insert GL accounts anymore. Why? Because we are not processing a general journal. This is for AP clerks And in this very moment, what we do normally select is a bank account. We are going to receive the money maybe in our offices, in a store, or you can actually, because we can send as well the information to the vendor through email, right? And so forth, and they can then come back, have the negotiations. I could just immediately process with my bank any given operation because it's optionally, but it's really important to use a bank account so you can later reconcile your payments, okay? So, and we normally operate with banks for this type of large operations for the actual company. So as well, we can report later what happened with the bank movements. Now we can as well create, for instance, the currency code. We could be different. It depends of the vendor, of course. I know that this was in US dollars because I saw the previous report. Anyway, you could actually interchange or change the currency code when necessary. And Business Central for me is going to actually use the exchange rate for any given currency that you select, right? And here I have a specific exchange rate. Look at it. So I have Canadian, euros, and Mexican pesos. Okay, other type of operations because I manufacture, so I buy in Mexico, I sell then in Canada, and then from Europe, sometimes I have some. So I'm expanding to Europe, so to speak, and then, well, I have to input all the currencies. Then the idea is that I would then just be able to proceed with any given financial process with those references, those currencies. Now, the payment method code is just a suggestion. It's just a suggestion, right? Because we have others. I am currently using bank, but as well, we have bank data conversions. What it means is that we as well might be working with international banks to actually maybe send information, right? This would be really complicated, and in the end, we just can integrate with your banks and Business Central, so you have then the same information, or at least download from your bank website the information and actually import it immediately into Business Central. That's a smaller customizations we sometimes do for our customers, so you don't have to actually work a lot with that. But regarding card payment, cash, check, and so forth, okay, check when we want to print checks only, right? But anyway, the idea is that just without, I'm not trying to confuse you, just giving you the actual basic fields that we manage, but it's actually about, I'm going to do a payment to one vendor, which is called Fabricant, and I will be then paying with one of my bank accounts, which is the checking. Simple as, all right? And then I could just verify, or your user would need to check, okay, I can pay, but which invoice am I going to pay? They can immediately open the second window where they are going to be able to see, okay, I have 3 invoices. Very good, external document number. So my vendor is calling me and tell me I have the invoice 107201, please pay, because this was already overdue, okay, 2000. Very good, no problem. I can just verify I want to actually just then pay. And then you can even preview the GL accounts that you're going to use. Okay, but for now, okay, this is good. I can pay, it's not a problem. And just insert a document that you're going to pay. And with that, voila, you can now immediately process with this very basic payment. Okay, now, this is then just, I'm going to delete it. I don't want to just do one single line. But the last step is just to come and post the document by clicking on post. This will be registering to the GL account for AP, to the vendor ledger, because we have this subledger containing all the vendor data, and I want to actually register this document, this payment to this vendor. If it is in front of me, if the vendor is in front of me, I could just register and print as well immediately the document. And preview posting, because sometimes it's good to validate before actually register the document, what affections you're going to do. We are going to just affect 2 GL entries. Then I'm going to show you in a moment the detail. We're going to, well, GL entries because we have AP and the payment method that we have selected, which is a bank. vendor ledger entry, because we are decreasing the debt with vendor. Bank account, we are going to actually take money from the bank account. And detailed vendor ledger entry sometimes is really, really important as well, because we need to check the amounts, exchange rates for currencies. If you are going to apply the payment against a specific invoice, right? And this is initial entry, and this application exactly means that we are going to actually input this payment against an invoice. Now, explaining what the information I'm going to be then posting now. I want to always check as in my first, while I'm learning Business Central, I want to verify that I'm okay with the accounts. So I'm going to be using my checking account. This is a GL account related to the bank, and using that is in the end has the same name as the bank checking, and then just the accounts payable, right? So we are going to do a matching for all these registers, and then the vendor ledger entry. What is going to be registered for the vendor? Well, is for the vendor 1000 fabricant. I'm going to now deduct the original amount. And then if I do this last payment, the remaining amount for this invoice will be 0. Okay, perfect. This is the invoice that I wanted to actually just post and use. Okay, as well, we have the concept of dimension for my AP or accounting processes. This vendor is coming from America, North America. I have, for me, it's very logical in my company only that this vendor is part of my industrial division. It's up to you. You might have stores, you might have manufacturing, field services, supermarkets, right? I don't know. So we can now slice and dice your financial information to contain more information, because from here we just prepare reports. So this payment or this purchase will be related to America North, Industrial Division, and Summer. Okay, sales campaign Summer for this vendor. Maybe sales campaign is not suitable for a vendor, but it's just a demo. Okay, it's not a problem. I just want you to tell, you can now say, okay, in your country, let's just make divisions of the geographical areas. And why not even make a vendor grouping? Okay, large, medium, small, and so forth. So this is then the registers I'm about to make, and then later for the banks, just to finish and complete the other exercises I need to explain. Then we have that from my bank account, I'm going to deduct this amount, right? And it will be then referenced as a payment, and the description. Well, maybe you don't like, hey, you can establish how you want to register your descriptions. It's up to you. So you can see then later this information to reconcile. Okay, that will be important. And here you are going to see your description. Here it is. Okay, so this will I would include this first or reference, ask the vendor a good reference, or deposit number 00001, or any evidence that is suitable for you will be good. And we have other fields that we can include for you, right? Like look at recipient bank account, right? We have other setups that we can do. Well, because as well, I could include, well, and this is for Europe, excuse me. Okay, so that's it. Okay, just showing you, giving you the payment journal review of everything we have. Okay, but this is just the basic to see what is the idea, right? And number of lines 1. Are our lines balanced? Okay, the total balance would be 0. The only purpose of the balance is because sometimes as well we might then just sort of speak input like an accountant does. We don't always input information like in this format where I have everything in one line, but why not to say or to mention that we could use more or less the functionality of of an accountant. Let me just delete this part. That in one line you input the account, and in the other one you would as well select the offsetting account. So for here, the second line, I would include a bank, Okay, so it's not anymore one single lines, but the same transaction will be now only done into separated lines, similarly to what an accountant does. Okay, so here is the idea. It's up to you how you want to actually cover your journals. Okay, nothing else. I will now use other functions because I don't want to operate manually. I would do this maybe when I have in front of me the vendor, he has only that invoice, and I would only proceed with one single invoice, pay it, and that's it. Not complicated. Now, what happens most of the time? Well, for an AP clerk needs to actually just complete a whole definition. Well, for many vendors, right? That would be the idea, or even for employees. An employee and a vendor, they are a similar entity in terms of the AP process, because in the end they are my they are entities that I need to pay. Okay, they register transactions for me, so I need to then sometimes actually just do that. And we can register your employees as an entity similar to a vendor that we're going to use an AP account. They will have their own card similar to what the vendor is registering, just how many transactions. In their case, the only difference is that in one side we have invoices, and for an employee we have just labor entries. But as well will be optional. The AP clerk can actually use the following function. So the suggestion, we do not only operate manually. What we actually normally do is just use Business Central that has a simple automation to help me. I'm going to now move faster, not explaining now anymore the fields, but this option only. What it has is that for what was the last time that actually you paid, okay? So I'm going to go even to last year, because in this demo, it was not actually just today, okay? But this will be only, this is for demo purposes. You will normally be paying maybe every 2 weeks, so to speak. Now, we have other functions that I want to show you. The fine payment discounts, if you actually discuss with your vendors that specific negotiations, if you purchase maybe by volume, we have this functionality. We can provide discounts. So if we have the functions, look at the purchasing webinar that I provided, because we can establish special prices, special agreements, and special discounts. This will be then just only looking for those documents. Then use vendor priority is most significant with the available amounts. Okay, they suggest vendor payment function. What it does is going to look for all the invoices that I can actually pay, and actually let me show you, because they are just there with our remaining amount. Okay, so before showing all the documents, let me show you just the basic function. And I will be then just, why not just including the bank as an offsetting account. What it does, this is going to prepare the journal for me, but with your criteria. Maybe you only want to pay the invoices for one month ago only, okay, and leave this for the invoices for this month just open. It's not a problem for me. Then the only thing that we need to do for this specific function is, apart from the date, give this engine which offsetting account you're going to use. In this case, with my bank account again, nothing else, and you could filter by vendor. Okay, now please prepare a journal for me for Fabricant, or for 2 or 3 vendors at the same time, or for all of them for me in this very moment. Okay, and with that, this is going to now look for all the entries. Let me see what happened here. Very good. General bank reconciliation. I want to just look for the actual entries, if they were in another journal, because, oh, another thing that I wanted to explain, if they are in other journal, check other journal batches. Look at this. You might have 2 or 3 people paying at the same time. So if we insert this, check other journal batches, then it's going to look at other entries somebody else is paying. So I don't have double payments, okay? And so forth. Then posting date, starting document. Let me see what happened because I want just to inform you how this function works. No filters. Or maybe they are in another journal. One second, just to finish this part. Cash receipt and payments. I believe one of the dates is not working for me. Okay. Payment journal. Okay. Sorry, my dates were not properly working to my demo. Okay, it's just in Assure, it's going to restrict me only to work within April. Sorry for the delay. What happened here? What is going on? Okay, I have some payments that were immediately created by the application. I actually brought my universe, but I just wanted to show you that, first of all, the function does this. It's going to review all the documents that you have. It's going to input all the information that I did previously manually, and it's going to input for you the document number, okay? But what is going on here is that all the amounts that were actually just open that you need to pay will be now immediately inserted, separated by document here, right? You can see different documents and every amount is here, that is here is just only the total amount per invoice, okay? So this is, well, one way of do things is just that, okay, give me all the invoices that are currently open so I can select them. So that will be it, basically. It's not that is doing magic in this very moment, but the function just create the journal and give me all the invoices at once. Now, I'm just going to now delete to use the real how then we use that function, right? And the idea is that I'm going to prepare another payment. But in this very moment, I'm going to make Business Central to look for the discounts and as well use vendor priority. We have our vendors with priority that you can select. Some vendors might be level 1 or 2 or 3. Okay. On what this function does, I could say I only have, I don't know, $2,000 for this period for payment. I maybe pay every 1 or 2 weeks, right? And I have for now this budget, okay? As an example, of course. Now, check other journals is important. So if somebody else is currently as well paying, you will just give me now with my actual budget, all the invoices that could be fully paid for all the vendors and look for the oldest ones always. This is what this function does, okay? And just if they cannot be fully paid, don't even actually give that information to me. And of course, look at my available amount to pay. And as well, I'm going to include now I don't want to just prepare one payment for every single invoice. So what I want to do is just give me all the vendors, but summarize one single line and to include all the invoices, okay? I don't want to see 100 lines, just one per vendor. This is really handy for me when I want to, for instance, prepare checks or things like that. Why not to include even a check? All right, so a bank account that I need to include, this will be the checking. And just because, yeah, a good example of how to compress the vendor transaction is because I might be generating checks and I don't want to input or generate one check for every single invoice, right? That would be the idea as an example. And the bank payment type, I could, or we could integrate into the payment functionality, the checking printing. We just would need to request if you want to implement, then just what is your bank layout for the checks, the pre-printed form that the bank give you, the checkbook, and the actual layout. So you can insert the check in the printer, and Business Central is going to actually, once you select what you want to pay, is going to help you to print. And we normally customize that for our customers, maybe with a signature from the actual responsible and so forth, right? So for now, I'm going to do all of this into one single suggestion. So this is going to prepare for me the actual journal. I just need to click on OK. And this is then this has generated now only two lines. Okay. Why only two lines? I know what happened with the other vendors. Well, I have a restriction to only actually look at this, the amount. I only had previously $2,000. So it's selected. Let's just take a look at the first line. The first line is for one vendor that is called First Up Consultants. And from here, just let's take a look at the process, apply entries, we call it. So which invoices are you paying behind the scene with this? Okay, this vendor, you can check anyway all the open entries because everything is editable, but Business Central looked for the actual invoices open. Somebody is processing another document. Look at this, 2000. Okay, this was done in another exercise before this, right? And well, it's just there. Now, but I look at this, I want to use the payment G04005 that would include only the second line, okay? So Business Central is not messing around with what other people work is actually paying with the checking. Look at this with the payment called checking. That will be for other users. So we don't mix all the entries that we are paying at the same time. This is very, very useful, very controlled in this system. And now we are, okay, if that's fine, we can agree to actually select this line. It's not a problem. Okay, fine. And this way you can control and edit what you want to pay line by line, vendor by vendor. And now just come back. And the same will happen for the second vendor, right? You can see which invoices are selected, but as I mentioned, I would select only the entries that nobody else has actually selected before. And as well, with only the amount of money that I actually just have, I would just pay the invoice, the oldest invoice, at least in my system, right? That I could just actually select 725. So I only had some money that I could use, and this is it. Okay, so Business Central prepared that for me. Another thing that was included, I actually could just immediately post it, right? But before posting it, just as a bonus, because I have selected the option to print checks. You are going to see now that even though we are applying the payments properly, we have another field that is called bank payment type computer check. I want to now print it immediately. And what happened here is that I'm not going to be able to post it. Posting meaning register to find, financially speaking, the information, right? Decreasing the vendor ledger debt or the vendor debt, selecting the bank account that will be deducting money, the GL accounts and so forth, AP. Now, before actually doing so, Business Central, if you want to print checks, is going to ask you, okay, that's fine, you can register, but please actually print the checks, okay? So that will be exactly the actual information. And by the way, even before posting, you still have the preview posting review to validate. So is going to ask you, okay, check printed need to be yes, okay? Do I have not printed my checks? So what I can do from here is just send it to the printer. I will accommodate. I have the vendor in front of me. Okay, let's just accommodate the actual check in a printer just right now, and let's just print it. Okay. The idea is that we validate with this field. Once again, the same checking account. Why? Because every bank, this is related to check management. Every check has one specific number. Every checkbook has one serial number. So in this case, will be only 199, but that will be then selected by you. Now, if you commit a mistake later, you can reprint, or even we can just test the print if it looks good. So you can maybe just have a copy of the original check and put it and test the print if it actually looks good, the layout, everything is fine, the spaces and so forth. Okay, so we have we can print print the stuff only to check the actual lines that we are going to be paying, because I can see only here 2 lines, but behind these 2 lines, I have a lot of detail of invoices, amounts, and so forth, right? So we can just actually print the check and the detail. We can reprint, we can test, we can do a lot of things with your checks. For now, I want to just print it. I will just generate it virtually here in a PDF document that I would then immediately send it. It is going to ask you to select which printer you have. In this case, well, for me, a PDF to be able to show here. And well, I just a layout, standard layout is just here. We customize this once again for you, where I would show that this will be the actual amount for the check. Okay, here I have the actual a layout where I would include the characters for April 11, 2022, and so forth. Okay, the account, the amount, the information that will be included in your actual check, and so forth. Right here, maybe with the proprietary form, you have behind scene in the printer the actual layout, the bank information. If it's green, if it's blue, we just print here the characters. Okay, the information, and that's it. Okay, we accommodate this information for you. Nothing else to say. Now the check printed for every line is actually just check mark, meaning that I have printed my checks already. That's good. I don't have any issues. Deliver those checks, and in the end, before even moving, the idea is that we would now register this, because we are going to now affect all the entries that I showed you before, the dev, the GL accounts, and so forth. Because now, in order to do so, to conclude, I'm going to click on yes to just pause this journal. This is then just completed. Okay, very good. This is how the actual payment journal works. It's actually input manual information. As well, you can use your suggest vendor payments with to find discounts, to print or not print checks, to simulate, give and prepare different lines for the different invoices, or just give me a summarized line for one single vendor. The same would happen for employees. Let me see if I can find some entries. Let's just summarize as well per employee. No, currently I don't have employee entries, but would be exactly the same. But if instead of a vendor, what we would be seeing is just an actual employee. And look, this is very handy for me to pay the payroll. If you set up the employees in advance, I have Henderson, Olive, Horse Falls, and so forth. Okay, so if they have open ledger entries because they are maybe from your third-party system, they are inputting hours into Business Central, or if you have a store in Ellis Retail, we as well can measure the time in the POSs and check the entries, checkouts, breaks, and so forth, and that will be then generated to the financial department all the hours and entries that they're currently having, right? So with this, it's just the same. We just pay now instead of a vendor and employee, and we just select the bank account, and we as well can print checks and all the functionality that we have. Okay, so it's really, really cool to then just work with that. And yes, for the payroll, there will be a budget. So, right, pay them immediately all the agreed budget for the employees, and additional hours, then we'll have another treatment because we have approval for timesheets for your employees. So that will be approval required for payments. All right. So before we pay employees, we are going to as well just select that information and they need to be pre-approved. Okay, so that's in a general way an introduction to the payment journal and why, how then more or less we just manage this information. Now, just as a bonus, what happened here with the checks for you as an AP clerk, even though this is not banking, this is not banking a webinar, but for me, for the bank only, it's important because sometimes some of you in the AP department might manage your own bank accounts, okay? So you might need to see the actual, we are going to open the bank account card just to finish for now. And then I have in the bank account, the ledger entries for all the payments, invoices, deposits, transfer that you might have with the bank, all the historical information. And then if you can see here, I can see some payments, right? So if, what is this? With this bank, I previously purchased some, so to speak, assets, laptops, yes, a car. I also have an invoice. Many purchases that I can see here. And currently I have different payments, okay? So I pay my graphic design, first of consultants and School of Fine vendors. So for me, the person who actually checks this is going to be able to very fast understand what's going on, what type of transactions we have been processing with my bank account. Okay, all these payments, all these purchases by description, and well, the amounts, of course, because we are going to reconcile in the end that. And then for the bank account, we have the check ledger entries. The checks means that because I have printed some checks, and this will be a mirror of your real checkbook. Okay, I printed the check number to 100, right? And I printed the check to 100 at one, okay, for two different vendors. This is good. So I can see, okay, one check was delivered for the Vendor Graphic Design Institute on this specific date for this specific amount. It has two, and is the entry number 2, is the second check that I prepared. And every time we print a check, then we will be printing the vendor 201, 202, 203, and so forth. But for AP clerks, sometimes it's very important to mention that I always commit mistakes. I operate all the time. I have sometimes differences, currencies, or missing information that was not correct, or even the checks were not printed correctly. When I delivered, the vendor told me this is not okay, you don't have funds. That could be the case, right? But anyway, what we could do here is to void any transaction. That would be just a single idea. So I have printed two checks, so any of them would be wrong, and I could just the function void check. When I actually just void any given check, this is what we call the actual financial voiding as well, okay? What we could do here on applied and void check means that, okay, if I'm going to then just, so to speak, reverse this one, okay, so it is not going to be then have any affection, as well as going to unapply the payment, okay, that was applied against one specific invoice, okay, so the invoice, in other words, will be free again, so I can repay it later, all right? That is what we call then the financial reversal, okay? It's not only because the printed was faulty, okay, we can reprint any check at any given moment, that's not a problem. But when we know that we committed a mistake with the payment, when we know that the amount was completely correct, the currency, even maybe this was not the bank that I should use, okay? All of this, that's what we call the financial reversal. And this will be then giving you the entry status that was then financially voided, and this then the way we can just verify how then the entries for any given check actually is completed. But not only that, you could only navigate back and forth, okay? This is good about navigation, just to finish now. You can do an input in any given journal, right? But at any given moment, the destination of the information was the same. In this case, a GL account, a vendor, a bank. Now, instead of only one entry, I have two because of the reversal. Look at this. And from here to any of this, you can actually navigate. You could open a GL and then come back to the check. You can open a vendor card, and to verifying, you can check and do the review of what is going on. So to review detail so it's back and forth. This, in order to navigate, you can input transactions, see what will be the destination, GL, bank, vendor, and so forth. And for any of those entities, you can now open then this information, right? This is a detail for the vendor. The vendor, well, I previously provided one check to that as a payment, right? One check to this vendor, and then the actual payment was actually reversed, okay? Why? Because in the description, this was just voided. Okay, so basically that's it. These are the very basic operations for an AP clerk. We have other functions, right? For now, the actual webinar is finishing. If you have doubts, please just let me know. This will be it for now, right? And hope to see you then as well next time for the next webinar. Please go to optimus.guru to check our trainings, our training session, where you can continue learning what are the business central capabilities. So I don't know, meanwhile, I'm going to now show you the Optimus website. I don't know if you have any other question, or you can then send me your suggestions for on other trainings. This year, actually, I have been following all the suggestions for the people who say, yeah, I want to see this, I want to see that, all right, and so forth. So, well, you can go to Optimus Guru to review the trainings, okay? That will be just the suggestion. Okay. Thank you very much. Hopefully this is useful. Please attend. Thank you, Mr. Dan. Let's take a look then at another cool information for any of the systems that you might be interested in reviewing. Okay, CRM, e-commerce, Business Central. Okay, well, all of these trainings were just provided. This was the last for this month. Okay, but soon we are going to be then updating as well our trainings for March, so you can see all of them. I will be then just following all the information required. Thank you very much and have a nice week.